Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. Thank you guys for joining us for this update. I hope everybody is doing well today.
Yes, thanks so much for coming on super quick, Mods. Appreciate it a lot, and I'm glad to see we got a ton of people in here already.
So, lots and lots going on, as you guys know, and the plot thickens. And the deeper we go into all this, the more suspicious I get as well, especially with what we're seeing going on in China. And we've seen so many people just snatched, kicking, screaming, fighting, and not looking like they're sick at all. Not at all. But they're plucked out of society and supposedly taken to these camps where they're quarantined. But is that all that's going on here, really? Is there anything else going on as well?
Yeah, that's the first thing I keep noticing. One video after the next is these people look pretty hardy.
Yeah, pretty strong, and it takes 4 people to subdue them, and obviously we know some people won't show symptoms and some won't show symptoms for weeks. But, if something's attacking your system too, you just got to wonder, how much energy will you have? Will you feel like you're ready to go and, fight John Jones for the title? Some of these people look like they're ready to do it as they're being taken away.
They do, and they look surprisingly healthy, and I was really saddened to see that one who appeared to lose her life force. It was very disturbing.
It was horrible to see. And so, the plot thickens, and let's start off with this over here. So we see the WHO Director General tweets, "We are mobilizing the UN. The blue helmets are coming." This is out of IntelliHub. World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom, and I'm not even going to try his last name. Ghebreyesus. Okay. Close?
Very perfect, actually.
Okay. So, I'm glad I got her by my side. So he sent out a tweet on Friday admitting that the United Nations is being mobilized. This means UN troops will rove and police various nations of the world, including the U.S. So what do you guys make of that?
Now, wait, who exactly is this guy again?
This is the head of the UN.
The head of the UN is telling us this.
Yes.
Holy crap.
So, you know what? I've told you guys a long time ago. I forget when it was. It was a long time ago. But I had this vivid dream and woke up and told Cindy about it. And, I've had a lot of dreams that have turned out to be on. Not all, but sometimes they are. As I had shared with you guys, I kept a dream journal since I was a kid. I haven't done it recently. But I woke up and I remember telling Cindy I had a dream that I was saying to her, I can't believe we're going to have UN troops, foreign troops, on U.S. soil tomorrow.
I do remember that vividly, seeing that on my, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was just one of those dreams, and, I didn't know the circumstances, but it was just like I was watching it. That's what it's kind of like. It's like watching the news sometimes, these dreams. So is that something that's in the making here? As you see his tweets, he says, "I stress that the world is facing a chronic shortage of personal protective equipment. This afternoon, I'll be speaking to the pandemic supply chain network to identify the bottlenecks, find solutions, push the fairness of distribution of equipment." And then it says, the WHO is not alone. We are mobilizing the full power of the UN system and bringing together partners to support countries to respond to the 2019 COVID outbreak. No one country or organization can help stop this outbreak alone. Our best hope and our only hope is to work together. Well, yeah, working together is fine. But then again, I'm not sure people are going to appreciate UN troops on American soil or on other nations' soil as well. It always gets you wondering, as we know, there are controllers behind the scenes, and good to see everybody there. And we've all been wondering about that. Everything that happens, every big event that happens from 9/11 on down, what's the one thing that always comes about? Well, basically our rights, are slowly, continually eroded. And Big Brother gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
One thing one of our subs sent us today was really interesting because they're talking about, medical martial law, which is far worse than martial law. So that was really disturbing. They've been setting this up for, for this specific video, it was since 1975. And we're like at the third step of it to do this medical martial law.
So that's the thing, is this perhaps just another triggering event in a long series of triggering events that leads to, the outright seeing of the NWO with, personal rights just completely gone, on a big level, because it certainly is. It's starting to feel like that. If we look at, and we're going to look in, a lot closer detail what's going on in China right now. But if we're looking at what's going on in China right now, as I've said from the beginning, I've had my suspicions about, the Chinese, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, taking this chance to get rid of people that are a pain in the butt, to get rid of people that are pointing out some of the, shortcomings of the CCP, and, anybody that speaks up for human rights, and that appears to be exactly what is happening.
So I feel like it's important now to get all the information that we can together, because there's probably going to be a point where we either don't have the channel or we're going to have to just simply change information.
Yeah. We're doing as best as we can in this situation. Everybody is. There's so much going on right now. We need to come together. We need to be unified as a world. But, the problem is it's not what they have in mind, because obviously it's the control of the few over the many. And it's basically treating, the 99.9% of the world as nothing but serfs, slaves, cattle, instead of with respect. And there's too much division. We've had nothing but the haves and the haves not being separated every year that goes by a greater chasm. The zealot now chosen, speaking about the second virus in Africa. We talked about, we did a video on that yesterday. So, and it's not just that. There was a human transmission of bird flu. There's a lot of suspicious things going on as well. And of course, if we say it's suspicious and, we don't necessarily trust the powers that be, then obviously, now we're spreading, quote unquote, this info, or, we're not taking the party line, and they want a party line. They want a globalist party line is the bottom line.
Yeah, they do. And what's really good for us, though, is that we're not as easily controlled, because we do have a lot of information that we've been getting in over the years. Plus, we are armed. There's a lot of things that we can do. So, I don't think it's a time to feel like helpless at all.
And you're talking about the U.S. when you're talking about the arms, because we had talked about the fact that there's like pretty much 1.2 something guns per person in the U.S. So in China, they don't have much they can really do, but it would be much harder to enforce this over here. What they have going on. And then I don't believe that all authorities are in on this plot, at the highest levels. The powers that be, the true powers that be, know exactly what's going on, but I think that's few and far between. I think there's a lot of people that don't have a clue, even people in the Senate, even people especially in the House of Representatives. I think, most of your House of Representatives are people that perhaps are not bought and paid for yet, until they get to be deeply entrenched, like you see with the senators that have been in the Senate for 20, 30, 40 years, which is ridiculous. There should be term limits for that. That's exactly how the Roman corruption was so rampant. But then again, we've talked about the fact this is still the Roman Empire. It's just basically changed and morphed a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just changed just enough so that we don't quite recognize it. But actually, when you look close enough at all the statues and all the terminology and everything, yeah, Rome has not fallen.
And there is a lot of gold hoarding, as Sweetgrass is pointing out. There's a lot of gold missing, and then that gets you thinking about a lot of things. For one, why is gold valuable in the first place? Why did anybody ever put value on gold? Most people probably wouldn't have any clue. But of course, then we see the Sumerian tablets, and it talks about that's what the Anunnaki came for. Okay, so then that makes sense. But I don't believe it's like Sitchin says. I think there's some disinfo with Sitchin going on, and as well. Instead of like fixing their atmosphere, as it was his take on it, I think gold is a valuable commodity, and as far as human potential, and silver as well. Silver has value in fighting viruses and bacteria, so it has health benefits, and gold has benefits with our consciousness, and that's why they want to keep it out of our hands, so the value is there because it can help liberate humans, and that's why there's value in silver and gold.
Yeah, the colloidal silver, colloidal gold, stuff like that, that's the true value. But, they don't put it out like that, though. They make it seem monetary.
Yeah, well, that's what people don't understand, as why. Whoever did decide silver and gold are valuable. And of course we were on the gold standard at one point, and now we're not. And just so you guys, if you guys haven't seen, there's nowhere near the money printed than the numbers show. So if there is, and we are, see, the other aspect of all this is a financial one. And this is something that really can, and some people think this is the main thing, is triggering that financial collapse. And then there's going to be one brand new monetary system that comes in and controls everybody. And, what we need to do is to break down into smaller groups and support each other locally as can happen. So we were just looking at very, very inexpensive pieces of land in the desert that, we could grow things on. And, there's communities that grow tons of food, even in areas that you wouldn't think you could grow tons of food. And, you could develop barter and trade. We can get off grid. And some places it's illegal to get off grid. And we talked about how in Washington State it's illegal to catch rainwater. That's just freaking ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Again, it's all about control. So, how do we get out from under the control grids is the biggest thing. How do we, tell them no more, we're going to get our asses out of this system.
In nuclear quantum lasers, Pew 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 brought up a really good point. And I believe him, the more technology advanced a society becomes, the more gold is needed because of its multi-purpose value. There's like many dimensions to gold and the precious metals.
Yeah, most definitely. And I didn't see Arca Shiloh in here yet, but he'll tell you about gold and consciousness because, it's one of the things he's studied a ton of. And, gold definitely has an effect on our consciousness and can help to raise our vibration, perhaps. And also, obviously, we have, as they look at the numbers on my screen.
Whoa.
So, whenever we talk about anything that really, really hits home,
we get in trouble.
Well, no, what it is they're telling us that we just, we hit on a big truth. We hit on a big truth. Look at that, 16 watching they're showing now.
Wow.
Now, if I look at my phone, I see 354 on my phone right now, but they're showing 16 because, the powers that be control this complete system. And, this is that Babylonian money magic system that goes back. Now we're back up to 347. this goes to Sumeria. It goes to those that we call the Anunnaki and their offspring, the bloodlines that still are running this planet, but they're going to lose control because we're waking up and, we're catching on to the big scam that has been going on.
We are. And, we're all waking up more and more, starting to understand that we have this little thing in our head that's like an antenna, this pineal gland, which helps our intuition. So we know what's going to be the better choice for us when we're out there. So we can read the energy a lot better. And there was CIA papers put out way back, what was it, in the 80s, 70s, that they knew we would become way more intuitive and harder to control during this time.
They've done studies on a lot of things, and I talked about the CIA studies where they were studying the effects of the magnetosphere going down and us being exposed to more cosmic rays. And one of the side effects is people's intuitive abilities get better. So they understood that. They understood that more people's pineal glands are going to come online, and we're going to be able to, more people are going to be able to actually see energy. You're going to know right away when people are lying. It's just going to be just so obvious. So their ability to control us is going down. So that's part of what they know in this. It's going to happen in this time period. And Chris brings up suntan lotion blocks the rays. Mm-hmm. Exactly. It hit me a long time ago, really, because I don't use suntan lotion at all. Fluoride definitely hardens the pineal gland. They want us afraid of the sun, and the sun is the transmitter of light, which is information. So it's the thing. The sun is the being, the literal being that is the conductor that's sending information from, you could view it as God and source, directly into us, triggering our evolutions and triggering the changes in us, our chemistry and our makeup, as well as our consciousness. So they want us being afraid of the sun. And so they want us to be fearing skin cancer and all those things. And don't go outside. Make sure you're not soaking up those rays, because they know those rays, for one, they're going to boost your immune system by increasing your vitamin D output, and they don't want that because they don't want you healthy and vibrant. They want you chronically taking in pharmaceuticals, and the pharmaceuticals lower your vibration and control your consciousness as well, limit your consciousness. So that's really what this is about. This is a war on consciousness. And so they want us to be all dumbed down, and they want us to be on junk food, so that's going to give us more inflammatory response, lower our immune system again. We're going to run to the store, and look at it, goes down to 156. So we hit on a good topic again. We're going to go run to the store. We're going to buy something that, over the counter, or get a prescription, and it's going to control us. Mm-hmm. And that's part of their bottom line. Yeah, GMO, everything, obviously, that's part of the whole plan. It's a massive plan, multifaceted from every angle. And it's something that's been going on for a long time. So now we have, this being put out there. So, here's a recon request. If you spot any military troop or vehicle movements, please take pictures or video. And IntelliHub wants you to send it into them, which, feel free to do that. As we see, the Chinese ambassador does not deny coronavirus came from biological warfare program. They're not denying it, So there's been a lot of questions as to, I think most of us think that it did, but again, the question is, who released it, and what's the bigger purpose?
Yeah, I've always thought that, there's so many layers of deceit here. We don't know about the virus, exactly what it is. There's many different things it could be. We do know to be cautious. At the same time, I think the end goal is simply to use this as an excuse to lock things down and control everything. I mean, there's just so many different layers here, and to watch it unfold the way it is pretty amazing. It's a beautiful time to be alive, and we're really lucky to be over here in the US, so we have time to prepare.
Well, prepare we should all be doing as best as we can, and we got to make some hard decisions, how that looks for each person. And obviously, when we see the stats that show the vast majority of people live paycheck to paycheck. And, that makes life hard when it comes to, okay, how do we save up? A lot of people are recognizing, hey, I'd be better off if I was not in this big city, but tied to a mortgage, tied to whatever it is, a job that you can't move away from, can't work remotely. Everybody has their constraints, so we just have to listen to that inner voice. The bigger picture is, as we know, that when you look at what Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 we're talking about, and this push to herd people into mega cities makes it easier to control. China is the model, and yet we see right here the model is getting beaten the crap out of with what's going on right now. And if we look at the official numbers, over the big 40,000, and you have 907 deaths. And that big red circle is growing to, at some point, it's going to be over the whole country of China. And so they show 64 others now, 39,848 cases in mainland China, 40 in Singapore, 36 in Hong Kong, 32 in Thailand, 26 in Japan, and 25 in South Korea, 18 Taiwan, 16 Malaysia, 15 in Australia, 14 Germany, 13 Vietnam, 12 in US, 11 in France, 10 in Macau, and we have 7 in Canada, 7 in the UAE, 3 in Italy, 3 in the Philippines, 3 in India. So, as we see this go on up, and, more and more people are putting this together. Wuhan crematory, 127 yesterday. This is 4 to 5 times the normal rate. So again, what is the real reality?
Yeah, I think the only way we're going to really find out is just to keep watching and compare, like, with what's going on now as far as what's happened it's going to be a hindsight thing. That's how we're going to know what's going on. Unfortunately, that's the way I think it's going to go.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. It's from official sources, so we could call the official sources, deep state or whatever we want to when you get down to it. Though I do think they use terms like that to try to give us this a false sense of security in some ways, because many of us think the deep state is one thing, and there are those that think the deep state is completely comprised of just Democrats. But you can't get any deeper than the Bush family or others as well, as we've seen. When you get down to it, it's both parties. They're all controlled. And when you look at some of the donations from the mega corporations, it's just insane. It's like 145 million, given to the Democratic Party, 144 million given to the Republican Party. Either way, no matter who wins, they're in the pocket, and that's the thing that's guaranteed.
Yeah, I think I've heard it said, same wings, two of the wings from the same dirty bird. So there's really no separating them at all in any way. And that's, because I had a lot of hope, a while back, but the more I watch this stuff, it's like, yeah, okay, we need to take care of ourselves is what we really need to do. Really seriously go within and listen to that inner voice now more than anything, and probably not trust what either side is saying.
So this is out of Zero Hedge. Exiled Chinese billionaire claims 1.5 million infected with coronavirus, 50,000 dead. And if you guys have been following Dr. Paul Cottrell, he brought up this Twitter account, which is the Voice of Quo. And I talked about this before. So I didn't realize this is who this guy is. And I'm not sure if a lot of you guys realized that this is who this guy is. Because what he's calling for is for people to rise up and overthrow the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. And so, all this starts to make a lot more sense to me again as we look deeper in. I think there's it's a multifaceted, event that we're seeing here, and there's more than one, desired outcome from these powers that be, one of which there's a lot of factionalism that goes on. And again, if we look at, the Sumerian records, they were always fighting each other, these Anunnaki. Always infighting, always wanting to be the top dog, because they're all about ego and all about greed and control, and this is what we still see going on. And so, as we had talked about before, in my personal opinion, I feel like there is, and I've gotten it from some inside sources in politics, that there really is infighting going on between the MIC and the banking cabal. So I don't doubt that, and I think the banking cabal controls China, and that was their model. That's what they want for the rest of us, is the Chinese system. That's how I've come to view it. Whereas the MIC, as I've said before, I feel like they wanted to stay with what the status quo was with the U.S. and the revived Roman Empire, under the U.S. Control moving forward. So there's some factionalism going on here. And, this exiled Chinese billionaire, he's all for overthrowing the Chinese Communist Party, obviously, because then, guess who? He's going to be just like, he'll be another poster child, just like we saw in Venezuela, right, with Guaido. It's the same sort of thing going on here. And none of them give a crap about us, because again, we're not even on the chessboard. None of us are even pawns when you get down to it in the bigger scheme of things.
No, we're not, and that's what we need to keep in mind too. Is they really don't give a crap what happens to us, as long as we're good enough to be a battery to go out and help run their machine. And our health, to go within, reclaiming your own health, doing what it takes to get healthy, I think is going to be so, so important. And the number one thing I've seen that's the hardest but most available to get off of is sugar. Sugar. I mean, if we could just get off the sugar and processed foods, oh my gosh, that would be, earth shattering.
Absolutely. And I find it interesting, too, to see what videos they demonetize. And again, many people have pointed out demonetize. Yeah. Right?
Demonized.
Yeah, so one of the things I found interesting was you could talk about the new mysterious virus in Africa. That was okay. At first it was demonetized, then they reviewed it, and they said it was okay, it's suitable. Now, you can't talk about the dozens of schools closed in the U.S. because of the flu. And so that was confirmed by review. And you most definitely cannot talk about the coronavirus. Anything that talks about the coronavirus, all these yellows, not suitable. So I found that really interesting. So that maybe makes me think that the new virus in Africa is not necessarily going to be anything huge. But it makes me wonder about what's going on with the flu season here in the U.S. and obviously about the coronavirus as well.
Well, I'm feeling like our immune systems are under attack more and more, and that could very well be why the schools are, doing what they're doing and stuff. I gotta be careful with my vocabulary words. But, yeah, I do think it's our immune system under attack.
That is something that I would completely agree with. So I found this very, very interesting, this connection. And so he has come out and he's said again, 1.5 million infected, right? And there are, I think, about 1.6 billion Chinese. So obviously this is huge and getting bigger. 50,000 dead. So that's what he is saying. And of course, he's attacking the Chinese Communist Party, who I don't think is anybody's friend. Honestly, and again, they are the poster child for the NWO of the system that certain powers want, to be in effect for all of us. So you see a cruise ship quarantine in Hong Kong is going to be allowed to leave after 4 days. there's so much going on. New cases in the UK, Spain, Singapore, and we talked about it surpassing SARS, and this is him. And again, I'm not going to trust any billionaire. I don't care what country they're from. To me, money corrupts, and especially when you get to that type of a level of having that type of resources. I would never vote for a billionaire. Period. I mean, do you trust him?
Oh God, no, because he got that way for a reason. He's had to have been somewhat ruthless.
Exactly. And so I would not be surprised at all, if we see, that they're obviously calling for an uprising in China. That's really what they're calling for. And, Cindy's been really critical of all the videos coming out the whole time, thinking that there's something bigger going on here. And, it's suspicious. So, this is a call for an uprising that we're seeing here. And so, obviously he'd be, I'm sure, more than willing to step in and become the new leader of China or put a puppet in. And as we see all this, we've seen so many of these videos, people that look pretty damn healthy running, like at a track meet as they're, going to be rounded up. Well, what we really need is we need the people that are in the militaries of the world to wake up to the fact that they are just completely being used for the most part by these powers that be.
We do. And, there's so many more of us than there is them. And if we can all find the most healthiest way to live even, and just, it's not like you need to leave your job or anything like that. But if you can even find a healthier way to live, do your best to not need the medical that's offered out there, because I do believe that's one way they're going to control people.
And so somebody said, what's up with June 6th? Because that was one of the messages that this gentleman, Quo, gave. June 6th, some sort of code. And so Dr. Cottrell said if we divide it in two, June 6, 2020, then we end up with 322 if you're looking at it from a numerological standpoint, which was coincidental because the day before he came up with that, I put out a video on 322 Skull and Crossbones, because that is the sign of the Skull and Crossbones Society at Yale, of which three Bushes were a part of, as well as Senator Kerry, numerous officials. It's a secret society. And then it's also a reference, 22, to the number of bones in the head of a human skull. It's also, if we look at Genesis 3:22, that's talking about, we can't have humans now that they've bitten of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, biting of the fruit of immortality, because then they are like us. So there's a lot of layers on there. And what's happening now with the change of consciousness is we are going to become, quote unquote, more like them, in that aware of the fact that we have power to manifest our own reality. We've been allowing them to control our reality. And it's time for us to wake up and take control of the reins ourselves. So, I saw that. And, there's a lot of people that are still not awake at all, but think they're awake. But you have to look deeper. You have to look a lot deeper. And, so many are still in this control matrix, still taking sides. Now, so that's really what I believe it was all about. And we'll have Dr. Paul Cottrell on Thursday, and that's going to be at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, noon on Pacific Standard Time. So, and I want to go into more details on this type of stuff with him as well. So, recognize that. Look into everything. Look into the connections with Israel. Look deeper. We're so controlled by our religions. We're so controlled by the divisive politics. We're put into camps always going at each other. And that way they could control the bigger picture. And Gabriella says, can't sleep well at night. That's all of us now. We're all waking up in the middle of the night and can't get back to sleep now. I think it's part of all the energy out there being manipulated and controlled as well. So Peter says, is hell real? Well, Buddha said only in the minds of those that believe in it. And so there again, saying that we control our reality. And so especially when we're on the other side, it's very pliable. It's very pliable. And so where we are now, this reality is changing along those lines as well. It's getting more like the dream state. It's getting more like the astral. And that's part of it. So we could control positive and negative much better, but they want to seed the seeds of a negative world because there are beings that feed off of loosh, as we've talked about. Loosh is just that negative energy. Think of the energy that's released on the battlefield when people are actually killing each other. There's tremendous emotions, and we are emotional batteries. We have so much energy in us. And there are beings that are ticks and leeches that just grab on and want to feed off of that. And they control us in that sense as well.
And they do. They quite literally do look like a tick on the back of your neck, and they suck on your energy, and it's quite disgusting. But I think once you realize that and you realize that's the energy that we're up against, when you come to that true knowing, then you're more apt to turn your attitude and make something good out of everything, because you don't want to feed that anymore. You just don't.
Most definitely. Chris B says he woke to see a gray and in his room this morning. And yeah, there's all sorts of entities out there. See, part of, and I'm going to make a video on this, but part of the thing is getting us to always think that we have to make a choice between A and B or B and C. So people will say there's no aliens, they're all demons, and then others say they're not demons. There's obviously aliens, but perhaps there's aliens, demons, angels, all sorts of different beings, interdimensionals. Perhaps there could be a button that or a multiple choice where it's all of the above, and then talking about Elohim as well. And I'm going to do a video on that as well. They've twisted everything. So think about beings that are very much lower, saying there's something that's very much higher, or something that is negative, portraying itself as something that's benevolent. And that's really what's happened a lot throughout our history. And of course they put so much fear in us to not delve into certain things and things that would enlighten our consciousness and help us to see the bigger picture. Is really anything like that they want to keep us away from. And so most definitely, as we see, China is under a huge humane crisis. Police can chase anyone in the name of quarantine. So he's right there. And there's a lot going on there. And delving down into that, you see China orders Wuhan to round up all suspected coronavirus patients and put them into quarantine camps, as Beijing warns officials who run away from the war will be nailed to the pillar of historical shame. And if we look over here, Chinese citizen journalist who has brought the world the truth on coronavirus emergency disappears from the streets of Wuhan days after a whistleblower doctor died. And this is Chen Qiushi. He reported on incidents including a woman sitting by her dead relative slumped in a wheelchair as she frantically made calls. He hasn't been heard of since 7 p.m. local time Thursday, his family said. Fellow citizen journalist Fang Ben was arrested before being released last week, and Dr. Li Wenliang, who raised the alarm over the disease, died on Friday. And here we see Chen Qiushi. And, truth silenced again, most definitely. Chinese citizen journalist disappears in China. Gordon Chang warns of coronavirus origins. And where is he? I don't know. I guess he's, relaxing by a pool somewhere. No, probably not. He's probably in one of these camps, or he's ashes in the wind right now, And you see the county in Hubei offers cash bonus for voluntary doctor seeking and whistleblowing.
So that kind of sums everything up there, nice and tidy. You wonder what's going on. It's a whole lot of things where they're trying to keep stuff covered up so they can take control. But, the longer they keep us in the dark, the longer they have to implement things.
So, research Zephyr, guys. Research Zephyr. And look into that. That's something that I've talked about just on Patreon. And it's part of a bigger plan. It's not just a Chinese plan as well. It's bigger. It's bigger than that. Yeah, exactly, Matt. And there's a word that begins with P that should go in front of that. Think about in terms of like if you had an assignment to do at school. What would you call that? Do you remember from school, like an assignment? Well, anyway, so look into it. And you got it, Matt. Put those two words together. And, there is something really big underway. And, yeah, you got it. That's right, Elizabeth. I think, yeah, or ZY, I believe. Let me just dig into that. This is most definitely something that I became aware of months back, and it sounded scary and ominous. And but like one of those things that's probably hopefully just BS. But I don't think it's the case. It seems like this could be part of that. Yeah, there you go. So there's two, and you could use that same school word. And then, do you guys remember pogo sticks? Pogo. Yeah, use that school word with that, and then also the same thing that we were talking about, and you will find some ominous things, very ominous things as well. And it does feel like what the rumors were about that could be part of this that's going on. Yeah, pogo was fun. I was never good at pogo sticks. Never really that good at them. Or unicycles, if any of you have ever tried those as well. So this is out Hal Turner. Video shows China bulldozing piles of body bags into a giant pit. Thousands of corpses in body bags stored underground. I think, the likelihood is that, these things are probably more accurate than, we were hoping.
I know. I still have this thing where I'm a little bit cognitive dissonant of the whole thing, but maybe that's just me standing back and, holding my perspective where just so I don't go crazy.
Here you see Royal Caribbean passengers test negative for coronavirus. Cruise ships scheduled to depart New Jersey. So, there was 4 previous tests as well from Manhattan and Queens that came back negative. Yet it's been a very, very bad flu season. And as I've been saying, I feel that everybody's immune systems are being lowered. And that's part of this bigger problem. Everybody's immune systems are being lowered due to a wide variety of things going on. I think I had a doctor, an allergist, explain to me once. He said, allergies are like, it's like a pot. And first you got the pot halfway full of water, and as long as it doesn't overflow, you're good. You're really not going to notice anything. But, then you throw in the potatoes, then you throw in the carrots, then you throw in the celery, and all of a sudden you just add one more thing and it starts to boil over. And it's the same thing going on with our immune systems as well. Taking the fact that our food doesn't have as much nutritive value as it used to. So many people are still eating things that are horrible for them, drinking soda, eating McDonald's. all sorts of things like that. You add that into the fact, you add in GMOs, you add in pollution, you add in, we could add in the V word. For you guys who have been following me for a long time, you could add in the skies and everything that's up there. And before you know it, that pot is just boiling over. This is Governor Larry Hogan, and he says sincere thanks to officials from the CDC and HHS Gov for today's briefing on the coronavirus outbreak. The nation's governors are taking this matter very seriously, and states stand ready to respond to this pressing public health concern. And then we see Dr. Eric here. So see that red line? That's the flu number raising its ugly head. So talking again about how bad this flu season has been. 78 kids dead, 12,000 overall deaths, 210,000 hospitalized, 22 million sick. So, he says, this is out of MD, Ficus MD. Why does this not get the same attention as the coronavirus? So, of course, they're pushing the V word, which, everybody's got to make their own decision. I wouldn't do it for $1 million, but that's just me. And again, I've had family members like my sister who is a nurse, and she has to get it. Every year she gets it. Every year she's sick. And I haven't had the flu in 25 or 30 years, I think, something like that. Probably 30, I just had it twice in my life, once when I was a little kid. But yet, I see so many people that do get the V word and they get sick just right away. So, but it is most definitely what we're seeing is a severe flu season going on. And you got to wonder, what's mixed in with these numbers here. 22 million sick. There's, 327 million Americans, people in the United States. So, it's not quite 10%, but it's a big chunk.
Yeah, it is. And I've always thought that that's one of the reasons they're pushing it too, is from that V word that I don't want to mention because I don't want us to get in trouble. But personally, I wouldn't either. Not for 2 million, not for 3 million. There's nothing on this planet that would get me to do that.
Yeah, there's obviously this is, that's pretty ominous, pretty scary to look at. You see these armed guys right here blockading checkpoints. All medical staff are full equipped to deal with all of your needs. And for people that haven't culled their pets, abandonment is the next alternative. And think about all these beautiful, sad little animals, what's happening to them as well. It's just horrible to really, look at everything that we see going on around us right now.
That's the one thing I really have a hard time stomaching, because these little creatures, they didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, Eyes to See asked any word from David. Yep, David's here. He's in the States. He's stocking up. We're going to get together probably in the next couple of days to do a show again. So he's just getting ready and getting set to hunker down as well. So glad he's here. He says that they're not taking enough precautions over here for sure, from what he's seen. And he's amazed at how people are not awake to this as well.
Yeah, well, it's going to take time, because we've been conditioned to believe what we see on mainstream and only on mainstream. And then if you're like us and you go out on a limb, there's repercussion for telling the truth. So, it's just conditioning from birth. So that's probably why it's not being taken so seriously over here at the moment.
Exactly. And let's see what else we got here. Okay, we touched on that. And this is a high-speed rail station as well. And you can see it shut down over in Jiangsu province in China. And just, has his Harry Chen again. An unusual zoo indeed, as so many people are barred into their homes. And again, in China, there's way more people that live in these massive apartment buildings. As again, the the amount of people living in China is almost 5 times that of the U.S. And the countries are about the same size as far as area, but 5 times as many people per square mile. It's pretty intense, and gosh, I'm just glad that we're not over there. And jumping over here, Wuhan pneumonia, China out of control. So there's word out now that Beijing is being locked down as well, the capital. Some people are saying it's not total lockdown right now because there are people leaving Beijing, but it's in the process of being locked down as well. David Devine had said that he expected that pretty much around today we'd be at pretty much 500 million on lockdown, a full third of the country. And it's just keeps increasing, guys.
Yes. Nuclear Quantum asks if they're barred in, how do they get food? And I'm not sure. The last thing we were watching with these folks that had gotten quarantined, I think they were from China, they said there was a family member, they chose one family member was allowed to go out every 2 days and get the food.
That's how they've been operating it. And, talking about the economic situation as well, because that's another big part to this whole picture. Amazon pulls out of MCW 2020, citing coronavirus concerns. The e-commerce titan joins LG, Ericsson, and NVIDIA in skipping the Mobile World Congress this year. And, it's massive, the impact financially that we're seeing. The coronavirus crisis could shut auto plants around the world. And, it's interesting, too, because when you look at what happened in World War II, for instance, the auto plants switched to making tanks and military equipment. And so this is going to shut down auto plants around the world, especially in China, China first. So, if those things are shutting down, and that's just another thing that comes to my head right away, is it really inhibits their ability to produce military hardware as well. I'm sure that the top secret facilities, the top military facilities will keep going. But if there was a war on a bigger scale, because they converted all the automotive plants to military plants. And we talked about, and those videos were demonetized as well, about how Ford profited. And Ford actually benefited from the slave labor in the concentration camps.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of dots that are being connected. And over the days and with these updates, we'll just connect even more dots. I just think this is fascinating that we get to be here. Luckily, we're all in good shape over here. I'm sad for the people in China, but it is interesting to watch all of this come together. And
today we were, like I said, we were out on the road most of the day. So I didn't see, but I don't think anybody's seen President Xi over in China today, have they? Does anybody know?
Yeah, I don't. Somebody said, yep. That's a really curious question. Like, where did he go? Did he just drop off the face of the planet? And how convenient is that? It must be nice just to be able to bop in and out of existence without any consequences, Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on here. Evolutionary Sanctuary, no notification. I know, if it wasn't for one of our mods here, Quantum Lasers, I wouldn't have gotten notifications either. I actually had to have him forward us our own show, our own link, because I couldn't find it. It was crazy.
Yeah, so I don't see any sign that anybody has seen him. They've seen the number 2, QiGong, but they haven't seen him. So yeah, that's I think that's a curious thing, most definitely. Yeah, underground. And that's what Guo is saying, that there's over 50,000 deaths. There we go. This gentleman. So, yeah, I mean, he says that there's 50,000 deaths at least and 1.5 million infected. So we don't know. That's the bottom line. But it definitely feels like a lot of things are being covered up, and so many are trying to get to the bottom line and the truth of everything that's going on. I think it's very interesting to look at the political aspects of this, and China and the U.S. most definitely, again, are on they've been on this, head-on collision that's coming. As, people recognize China at some point would pass the U.S. economically and militarily. However, when you see everything that's happened now, that might have gotten delayed by a generation or more with everything that's going on in China. Now, if it hits the U.S. to the same degree, then perhaps not. Perhaps there's still that same playing field. And even if there's puppet masters, which is what I believe, controlling both countries, the leaders of both countries, it doesn't mean that, they're still out for themselves. And there's powers that be, behind both countries that are not looking to jostle to be number one. As we know, the ego of so many of these political leaders.
Oh my gosh, well, it's huge. It's their success, so they need that ego and they have to keep it alive. Otherwise, things could fall. So that makes them even more difficult to deal with.
So we need to, again, we need to be as self-sufficient as possible, whatever that looks like for each person. Just, doing what you can, solidify your working with your family, your loved ones, have a plan, obviously, store food and water, medical supplies as well. Have a generator if you could, have backups to some of your backups. And, as has been brought up sometimes, people say well, we don't ever really talk about defense, self-defense. But obviously there will be those that, in a post-apocalyptic world, in a Mad Max scenario, there's going to be those that are just going to take from others and try to take from others, try to bully others, try to steal from you. And we just see all that going on. So obviously protecting yourself and your loved ones as well would be something you want to make sure of. Home security, as Nicole says. Yeah, back to basics. Think about how people lived back in the old days, and you didn't know what was going to come riding over the hill at any time. So there's a reason why, in the Old West, they had guns on them, and in other places as well. And, in some areas, you just need that for what's out there. You don't know in some places if you're going to run face to face with a bear or a wolf or, pack of coyotes. Who knows, So you have to be prepared in every way. And now is definitely the time to be putting all that together.
It is a good time, and one of the fastest things that you can do now is, like, in the mornings, a little squeeze of lemon in your water will help detox, and also meditation. That helps you go within to tap into that pineal gland to help you make the decisions you need to make for your current situation, because we all kind of have to do what we need to do where we're at. It's that time, and that's okay. And we'll get through this, and we'll keep updating you guys, and really appreciate you guys coming out on such short notice.
Yeah, and thank you guys so much for your support on Patreon and Ko-Fi, as that really helps us to keep going with this. And obviously like videos like this will be immediately demonetized and never see the light of day in that sense. So we definitely appreciate your support as always. And we got to do what we can to really get out of the system. So I think it's wonderful. Everybody that's taking steps to become self-sufficient, there's a big push. There's a big movement going on. People to get off-grid, people to downsize. You see so many people living in RVs, even living in in their vans or cars, even backpacking. I mean, there's a couple of guys I'm following that they're just living out of tents way up in like Canada, but they have figured out how to do it, and they're moving forward with that simple life. So for them, things, the shit hits the fan, and it's just another day. It's no big deal. So I think we need to work on our skills as well as, stockpiling certain foods and stuff, but, have backups so that you're actually going to be able to grow stuff as well when there's no more food to be bought, and have a plan.
God bless and namaste.
God bless, guys. Stay safe, stay prepared. Namaste.